What's up, everyone, and welcome to a quick edition of Mic Drop Events. My name is Sean Specie. I'm one of the hosts at Elevate and of the Mic Drop Events podcast. And today is just a solo episode. You get me. So I hope that doesn't make you tune out. But here's the quick topic of what I'm going to be talking about today. Is I'm going to be talking about how do you go from an in-person event to an online event? How do you take this thing that you've been doing in person? Maybe you've done it once, maybe you've done it a number of years, maybe you do it a couple of times a month. I don't know how often you would do it, but literally I was just talking with a new prospective client. They haven't even signed a deal yet, so I don't want to say a client, but a prospective client yesterday. And it's all about this leadership summit that they have. And this leadership summit, they've done it for 4 years now, and they usually get all of their people together from North America in Austin, Texas. And with COVID spiking, people are just a little bit nervous, and understandably so. You don't want to travel as much. You don't want to be exposed yourself. You don't want to expose your family or your friends or your colleagues or your coworkers. You don't want to be knocked out for a couple of weeks if you do get COVID, as well as you don't want to get it and spread it to someone else. So all of those things aside, what we were talking about specifically, they had a 4-day conference that they're now turning into an online one. They would fly in, they'd have a whole bunch of stuff on day one, an entire day, day 2, day 3, and then day 4, about a half day, so that their people could travel home, which is not uncommon, right? That's not uncommon for a leadership retreat or a summit or a conference like what we're talking about. But here's the thing, is that if someone is staying at home, like right now, I'm in my home studio. And usually on the other side of this wall is my wife and my daughter. I've got more distractions. I've got 3 different screens here in my studio that I'm looking at, and I've got distractions like crazy. So how you engage your audience online has to be different, and how you plan your event has to be different than you would an in-person event. And so here's my first recommendation. My first recommendation for you, if you're taking an in-person event and you are turning it online, is you need to cut the fluff. Cut it out. Cut the fluff. What I mean by that, the fluff I would determine as like things that are just unnecessary. Sometimes there's a fluff word. Sometimes there's a fluff sentence. Sometimes there's a fluff picture or a video. Take a 45-minute keynote talk, cut the fluff out of it, and turn it into a 15-minute one. I actually Googled this yesterday. If you go to Google and you type in how long are TED Talks, the first result that pops up says that TED Talks, so the popular TED style talk, they can be no longer than 18 minutes. And so if you're doing an online event, I would recommend a segment. You cut out the fluff and make it no longer than 18 minutes. Now, here's what you can do is if you have a 45-minute talk, and 45 minutes is really not that much time, but what you should do is you should change something in that 45 minutes so that every 15 minutes or so, something is changing so that your audience is staying engaged. You can change your presentation style, move from a keynote to a panel Q&A, or if it's one person, like what I'm doing right now, you can have that one person ask a question. Like my question for you would be, what's your favorite TED Talk that you've ever seen? Like that's one thing. And then I could read out the comments if I was doing this on a live stream on YouTube or at a live event on Zoom or something like that. The second recommendation that I have for you is to shorten the total time. Let me say that again, is to shorten the total time. So this company, they are turning a 4-day conference into a 2-day online conference. They're cutting out a lot of the fluff. They're cutting out a lot of the different things. You don't have people's attention for as long as you normally would. I was actually trying to attend an online summit a while ago. This was a couple of months ago. And I literally, I had to be tuned in on Zoom with my AirPods in, so I couldn't be on my phone while I was driving around doing some errands, right? So if you don't have your people coming to, whether that's your audience, whether that's their customers, or whether that is your employees, if you don't have them coming to a location, you can't control what they're doing around the time. And you have to ask this question, what am I competing against? So if you plan something in the evening for 5 days in a row, you're competing against family time or friend time or significant other time. If you are planning it during the day, you're competing with the emails that's piling up. And here's the tricky thing about online events. It is so easy to simply change tabs or to look at a different screen and to be multitasking, which who's really good about multitasking? I know that I'm not. So maybe that's you. Maybe you're a great multitasker, but chances are most of your audience are not great at it. So if they are neck deep into an email while you're trying to communicate this really important piece of information, that's not good. So one thing that you can do to really do that is to drive home with audience interaction to bring them back to you. But that's a whole separate conversation. All right. So the third thing, which kind of ties into what I was just talking about, but I am going to make a recommendation for you, is to add. So this is number 3, is to add virtual interaction elements. So add in these elements, a couple of which I've alluded to, that make your online event engaging for people. Because here's my personal thesis for how to be engaging. If someone logs into your event, you at least have their attention and they are at least interested. Now, they could be an employee, they could be a customer, whoever they are, but if they log in, they are at least interested in being there with you and with what you have to say or what you're going to do. Now, if you can hold their interest through storytelling, through showing pictures and different things like that, as well as you can interact with them, if you can do that throughout your event, you're going to have an engaged audience at the very end. I have done it with our clients at Elevate. I have seen other team members at Elevate do it with events that I haven't even been involved in, but they do the same thing where they help guide our clients to hold people's interest and to interact with them. And then at the end, they're engaged. So here's a couple of things that you should be doing to interact with them. You can do polls. If you have a platform that has a poll function built in, then great, go ahead and use it. You can ask polls like, hey, what is your favorite French fry brand or favorite French fry? Where do you go for your favorite French fries? Is it Zaxby's or McDonald's or Chick-fil-A? Even right now, this is a polarizing conversation because you're like, wait a minute, McDonald's is on the list of what he just said? Yeah, I think it's crazy too. Okay, my favorite would definitely be like Chick-fil-A, Zaxby's, In-N-Out Burger, and then everyone else is somewhere underneath there. So do polls where you can find out what are the audience's preferences. Now, a poll at an in-person event would be like by a show of hands. Well, a poll, you can do that by a show of hands. You can have people hold up something if you can see them on camera, or you can actually launch a poll where they're clicking a button and voting on something. The next one is to engage with them in chat. Get them to type in their name, where they're from right at the beginning. Get them used to using chat. If they have to pull it up, literally say, hey, I want you to pull up chat. Click on the little chat box and drop something in chat. One of my new favorite ones that our team is starting to use recently is called Menti, Menti. And you can search for it in Google, or you can go to mentimeter.com. And I think you can sign up for a free account. We've got the free version, and you can do some really cool stuff like word clouds, where they would go to a website, they would type in something, or they would click on something, and they can interact with you that way. Slido is another great one. You can show videos and audio, play different sound clips, different things like that, but you should be interacting with your audience. And then point number 4 that I've got for you, if you're taking an in-person event and you're going online, is please do this. Find someone that knows technology, okay? And not only do they have to know the software like a Zoom or Google Chrome and things like that, or like they have to also know hardware. So right now, as I'm recording this, I've got a professional microphone, I've got a laptop and a hardwired computer. I'm looking at a very nice camera. I've got lighting. There's so many different parts of the hardware. There's cabling. Is it HDMI cable, or is it USB? Is it micro HDMI or mini HDMI? So find someone that knows this. We actually just did a hybrid event where it was an in-person event and it was streamed online. And the company, most of their tech table was run by employees because it was an internal conference. And so they had a couple of employees that were there. Now, they could have hired us to do it because we do that a lot for our clients. But if you're sitting here watching this and you're like, well, I might not have the budget to be able to hire an expert for this, ask around, ask your friends, ask your coworkers. So those are my recommendations for you. Is number 1, let me scroll to the top of my notes here. So number 1 is to cut the fluff. Number 2 is to shorten the total time. Number 3 is to add virtual interaction elements or online event interaction elements. And then number 4 is to please, please, please find someone that knows what they're doing with the technology, both the hardware and the software. Well, you guys, thank you so much for watching this either on YouTube or listening to this podcast episode of Mic Drop Events. It has been a pleasure to be here with you guys. If you like this video or if you like this podcast, we would be honored if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You could subscribe, follow us on Apple, or subscribe to us and follow us on Spotify. Our podcast is also broadcast on almost every podcast network that you can possibly think of. And if you like this one, please, we would be honored if you gave it a rating. You can like this video. You can give us a rating on Apple Podcast, 5-star. We would be honored to get a 5-star, or let us know what we can do better. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you at a future episode.